Have you ever stared at your bank account, feeling that crushing weight of disappointment as the numbers refuse to change, no matter what you do? That moment when the silence in the room feels heavier than any noise could ever be? I know that feeling all too well. The late nights illuminated only by the harsh glow of a laptop screen, refreshing your banking app again and again, as if one more click might somehow magically change the numbers staring back at you. That bitter taste of cold coffee, lingering on your tongue, matching the bitterness of frustration welling up inside. Has this ever happened to you? There I was, doing everything the financial gurus told me to do. Visualize abundance, work harder, think positive thoughts, create vision boards, repeat affirmations until my throat was sore. I followed every piece of advice that promised financial transformation. And yet, the numbers remained stubbornly unchanged, mocking all my efforts. That exhaustion is unlike any other. The fatigue that comes not from physical exertion, but from the mental and emotional drain of trying everything and seeing nothing change. It's in these moments of complete surrender that something unexpected can happen. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share transformed not just my finances, but my entire relationship with money. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What I discovered on that night of financial despair wasn't another strategy or technique. It wasn't about working harder or visualizing more intensely. It was something far more fundamental, a shift in my energy, my authority, and the very tone with which I addressed money itself. You see, money isn't deaf. It's actually listening too well. It hears not just our words, but the vibration behind them, the doubt, the pleading, the unworthiness we unconsciously broadcast with every thought about our finances. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because it contradicts almost everything we're taught about financial abundance. That night, as I leaned back in my chair and whispered a question I didn't even mean to ask, what am I missing? Something strange happened. A calm washed over me. Not the comforting kind of calm, but the confronting kind, as if the universe had turned to face me directly and asked, "Are you finally ready to stop pretending?" In that moment, I stopped trying to fix the silence and started listening to it. And what I heard changed everything. Two simple commands emerged from that stillness, words that would completely transform my financial reality in ways I couldn't have imagined. Words that revealed the hidden pattern underneath every financial struggle I'd ever faced. That silence became my teacher that night. It wasn't empty. It was filled with revelations waiting to be understood. The confrontation I felt wasn't with an external force, but with the truth I'd been avoiding all along. A truth about my relationship with money that would completely transform my financial journey. In that stillness, I began to perceive something profound. The city hum outside my window, the soft rhythm of cars passing by like waves. All of it seemed to carry a message. What if money wasn't ignoring my efforts? What if it was listening too well? This was the hidden truth I never expected to discover. Money responds not to what we do, but to who we are being when we do it. It hears the energy beneath our words, the vibration behind our actions, the tone underlying our intentions. All this time, I thought I was projecting confidence, but money was hearing my desperation. I believed I was showing determination, but money was feeling my doubt. The icon revelation hit me like a wave of clarity. What if the confusion I was disguising as control was exactly what money was responding to? Behind every affirmation, behind every visualization, behind every strategy was an energy that spoke louder than any word or action. And that energy was saying something very different from what my conscious mind intended. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract financial opportunities effortlessly? They don't chase money. Money chases them. Their decisions around finances don't come from panic or scarcity, but from a centered place of knowing. That's not coincidence or luck. It's a mindset that creates an energy field money naturally responds to. This was my turning point, the moment everything shifted in my perception. I realized I needed to stop focusing on the external actions and start addressing the internal frequency I was broadcasting. The impact of this mindset shift was immediate and undeniable. Rather than trying to control outcomes through force or manipulation, I needed to align myself with the natural flow of abundance. This wasn't about working harder, but about resonating differently. Behind the scenes of our financial struggles is almost always an energetic discord, a mismatch between what we say we want and the frequency we're actually emitting. Money, I discovered, is neutral. It doesn't judge or punish. It simply responds to laws as consistent as gravity. And the most fundamental of these laws is that money is attracted to certainty, not need. It flows toward authority, not anxiety. As this understanding took root in me, I began to notice subtle shifts in my relationship with my finances. The nervousness when checking my account began to dissolve. The desperate energy behind my financial decisions started to transform into something more grounded and assured. And that's when I discovered the 2-word commands that would change everything. If you're feeling these words resonating with something deep inside you, write energy shift in the comments below. Now I want to show you exactly how this understanding led to the discovery of the first command that completely revolutionized my financial reality. The first command emerged not from striving, but from surrender. It came to me in a moment of complete stillness, when I stopped fighting and started listening. The revelation was startlingly simple, yet it shattered everything I thought I knew about financial abundance. Money isn't moved by action, but by authority. This insight was transformative. Think about it. We've been conditioned to believe that if we just work hard enough, hustle more, or take more inspired action, money will follow. But what if that entire paradigm is backward? What if money responds not to what we do, but to how we decide? Authority doesn't need to shout. It doesn't plead or justify itself. Authority simply decides, and the world rearranges around that decision. I began to notice this pattern in the most financially empowered people I knew. They didn't chase money with frantic energy. They commanded it with quiet certainty. Their relationship with wealth wasn't based on hope, but on knowing. If these 2 commands resonated with you, hit that subscribe button now to join thousands of others who are transforming their financial reality through these powerful principles. This was a complete mindset revolution. I started experimenting with this new way of being. Instead of approaching my finances from a place of anxious effort, I began to operate from a place of calm command. The shift was subtle but profound, moving from, "I hope this works," to, "This is already done." The universe has an uncanny way of mirroring back to us our deepest beliefs. When I started embodying this new energy of quiet authority, the strangest things began happening. An unexpected refund appeared in my account. A client who had disappeared for months suddenly reached out to clear an old invoice. A forgotten deposit was released. These weren't massive windfalls, but perfectly timed rearrangements that seemed almost orchestrated. Behind the scenes, a new pattern was emerging. My financial reality wasn't changing through dramatic external events, but through an elegant series of alignments that felt both mysterious and completely natural. It was as if reality itself had been waiting for me to step into this new frequency of certainty. The journey wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about remembering who I already was. In every area of life where I naturally felt confident, flow happened without effort. Why should money be any different? The revelation wasn't in finding a new strategy, but in removing the energetic interference that had been blocking what wanted to naturally flow. I discovered that true abundance isn't created. It's allowed. When I shifted from the energy of desperate seeking to the stance of calm authority, something in the field around me responded. Money wasn't ignoring me all those years. It was reflecting me perfectly. And now that my inner state had transformed, my outer reality had no choice but to follow suit. But here's where things get really interesting. This first command, this energy of authority, was only half of the equation. While it set things in motion, there was still something missing, a crucial element that would complete the circuit and bring everything into perfect alignment. If you've ever felt that shift from anxiety to calm certainty in your own life, type authority activated below. Let me show you how this initial command started to reshape my financial reality in ways I never thought possible. I began to witness something extraordinary unfolding in my financial landscape. The revelation wasn't about new tactics or strategies. It was a fundamental shift in identity. The true transformation wasn't in getting money, but in the precise moment I stopped asking for permission to have it. This insight cut straight to the core of what had been blocking my abundance for years. All that time, beneath my conscious awareness, I had been positioning myself as someone who needed approval from the universe to receive. Every visualization, every affirmation, even every action was subtly infused with the energy of seeking permission, as if abundance was something I needed to qualify for rather than my natural birthright. The breakthrough came when I recognized this hidden pattern. What if wealth isn't something we attain, but something we remember? What if the journey isn't about becoming worthy of abundance, but about releasing the illusion that we were ever separate from it? This awakening led me to discover something even more profound, an internal command we've all carried since before we even learned what money was. It's a frequency, a tone that reality instantly recognizes. It's not something we need to create or develop. It's something we need to uncover and embody. Think of a time when you were absolutely certain about something, not from ego or bravado, but from a deep, quiet knowing. Perhaps it was a decision that felt completely aligned, or a moment when you knew exactly what needed to happen next. That feeling, that resonance, is the blueprint for the energy that money responds to without hesitation. The catalyst for my financial evolution was reconnecting with this ancient certainty. I began to notice how this command manifested in different areas of my life where flow came naturally. In conversations where I felt confident, words flowed effortlessly. In activities I enjoyed, time seemed to bend around my experience. These were clues pointing to an underlying principle. When we embody our natural authority, reality arranges itself accordingly. Behind the scenes of this financial metamorphosis was something far more significant than dollars and cents. It was a reclamation of personal sovereignty. Each time I caught myself slipping into the familiar pattern of seeking permission, I would gently guide myself back to this tone of quiet authority, not from arrogance, but from alignment with a deeper truth. The interesting thing about this internal command is that it doesn't require volume or force. In fact, the quieter and more centered it becomes, the more powerful its impact. It's like the difference between someone shouting to be heard and someone speaking softly because they know their words carry weight. Money, I discovered, responds to the latter with remarkable precision. But something was still missing in this equation. While I had tapped into this command and felt its power beginning to reshape my financial reality, there was another piece of the puzzle waiting to be discovered. The exact words that would crystallize this energy and direct it with laser-like focus. If you've recognized that seeking permission has been a pattern in your own financial journey, type "no more permission" below. I'm CO, about to share the first specific command that completely revolutionized how money responds to me. The days following that initial awakening felt surreal. Outwardly, nothing had changed. Same apartment, same laptop, same numbers on my screen. Yet something in the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. It was as if the polarity of my relationship with reality had reversed. Instead of me constantly watching and waiting for signs of financial improvement, I had the distinct sense that reality was now watching me. This reversal marked a profound turning point in my manifestation journey. For years, I had been the observer, anxiously monitoring the external world for evidence that my affirmations were working. Now I felt observed, as if the universe itself was attentively waiting for my next command. The field of possibilities seemed to hover around me, ready to take shape according to my expectations. This wasn't some mystical fantasy. It was a tangible shift in presence that affected everything from how people responded to me in meetings to how synchronicities began appearing with almost playful precision. The air felt charged with potential, responsive rather than resistant. And then came the breakthrough, the articulation of the exact commands that would crystallize this energy into consistent financial results. Let me be clear about something. What I'm about to share aren't motivational slogans or psychological tricks. They're precise energetic directives that speak directly to the field of manifestation. Most manifestation teachings focus on attraction, drawing money toward you through various techniques. But these commands operate differently. They don't attract money, they direct it. The distinction is crucial. Attraction implies separation. You here, money there, with you trying to close the gap. Direction implies authority. You as the orchestrator of energy, with money as the natural expression of that orchestration. If you felt that shift in energy while watching this video, tap that like button as your way of saying, I command abundance into my life starting today. The revelation behind these two simple phrases is their ability to realign your entire relationship with abundance. They bypass the conscious mind's doubts and speak directly to the subconscious, that deeper part of you that's already connected to infinite supply. They're like energetic keys that unlock doors your logical mind didn't even know existed. I discovered that the power wasn't in repeating these phrases like mantras, but in embodying the frequency they represent. It wasn't about how many times I said them, but about how completely I became them. When the commands moved from my lips to my cells, when they became my default operating system rather than just words, that's when everything began to change. The first command addresses your relationship with money at the level of authority and direction. It establishes a clear hierarchy of energy, you as the commander rather than the requester. When I first spoke it, I felt a shift so profound it was almost physical, like something in the field around me had snapped into alignment. If you're feeling that subtle shift in energy as I describe this process, type command activated below. Let me reveal the exact words of this first command that completely transformed my financial reality. The most profound breakthrough came when I noticed the stark contrast in how different people speak to money. Most of us talk to money as if it's a distant entity we need to coax or convince. We beg, we plead, we visualize, we bargain. All approaches that subtly reinforce the illusion of separation. But there's a small, remarkable group who relate to money completely differently. They speak with a calm, unwavering certainty, not from arrogance, but from alignment. These individuals don't ask for money's approval. They issue clear directives that reality instantly recognizes and responds to. Their relationship with abundance isn't characterized by yearning, but by knowing. They don't hope for financial flow. They expect it as naturally as they expect the sun to rise. This revelation led me to articulate the first command that would transform everything. Money obeys me. The moment I spoke these three simple words, something clicked into place. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the energy behind them. I didn't say them with desperation or blind faith. I spoke them with the quiet authority of someone who already has what they're asking for, not as an affirmation of what might happen, but as a recognition of what already is. The power of this command lies in its profound simplicity. It doesn't negotiate with reality. It establishes a clear, energetic hierarchy. It's a declaration of sovereignty in a realm where most people position themselves as subjects rather than rulers. When you say, money obeys me, you're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're remembering an ancient truth your soul has always known, but your conditioning has forgotten. Behind the scenes of this revelation was a complete paradigm shift. I realized I'd been operating from an identity of someone who needed to earn or deserve money, rather than someone who naturally commanded it. This wasn't about developing arrogance or entitlement. It was about reclaiming my inherent authority in the domain of abundance. The real transformation happened when these words moved from being something I said to something I embodied. I began carrying this frequency in my cells, allowing it to infuse every financial decision, every conversation about money, every moment of giving or receiving. The shift wasn't intellectual, it was vibrational. What followed was nothing short of remarkable. Small evidence began appearing first: unexpected refunds, forgotten invoices suddenly paid, opportunities materializing as if from nowhere. It wasn't about the amounts initially, but about the pattern. Reality was reflecting back to me the new frequency I was broadcasting, the frequency of command rather than request. This command works because it aligns you with a fundamental truth of creation. Consciousness directs energy. When your consciousness is positioned in authority rather than lack, the energy of money responds accordingly. But something was still incomplete in this equation. While money obeys me established direction, there was another element needed to complete the circuit of abundance. If you feel a resonance with this command, type "money obeys me" in the comments. Now I want to explore the subtle yet crucial distinction between commanding money and controlling it, and why that distinction holds the key to the second command. After embodying the command, "money obeys me," I began noticing subtle yet undeniable evidence appearing in my financial landscape. It didn't happen as some dramatic windfall or lottery win. That's rarely how genuine transformation unfolds. Instead, it manifested through a series of perfectly timed alignments that couldn't be dismissed as mere coincidence. One afternoon, I was checking my email when I discovered a notification about an invoice that had been pending for weeks suddenly clearing. The very next day, I received an unexpected refund from a subscription service I'd forgotten about. Within that same week, a former client reached out about a new project, someone I hadn't heard from in months, who just happened to think of me. These weren't random occurrences. They were the first visible signs of an invisible shift, reality responding to the new frequency I was broadcasting. What fascinated me most wasn't the amounts involved, but the timing and the effortlessness. These things weren't happening because I was chasing them harder. They were happening precisely because I had stopped chasing. The revelation transformed my entire relationship with wealth at a fundamental level. I realized that "money obeys me" wasn't just a phrase. It was a complete rewiring of my financial identity. I was no longer positioning myself as someone chasing value, but as someone declaring it. This subtle yet profound shift changed everything because the universe consistently responds to the clearest master. This principle operates whether we're conscious of it or not. When we approach money with mixed signals, wanting abundance while simultaneously doubting our worthiness to receive it, we create interference in the manifestation process. But when we establish clear energetic sovereignty, declaring rather than requesting, money responds with remarkable precision. Behind the scenes of this shift was a complete identity transformation. I began to observe how my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money were changing without forced effort. The anxiety that once accompanied financial decisions was being replaced by a calm, centered knowing. The urgency that used to drive my actions was giving way to a patient certainty that perfect timing was unfolding. The insight here goes far deeper than financial strategy. It touches the very essence of creation itself. We often think we need to chase what we want, pushing and striving to make things happen. But what if the more powerful approach is to simply declare what is already true at the energetic level and allow physical reality to catch up? This command operates like a declaration of energetic law rather than a hope or wish. It doesn't beg the universe for evidence. It reminds the universe of an established order. The distinction might seem subtle, but the impact is revolutionary. When you truly embody "money obeys me," you're no longer trying to manifest abundance. You're recognizing that abundance is already your natural state. But there was still something incomplete about this equation. While "money obeys me" established the direction of flow, I discovered there was another essential element needed to complete the circuit. This missing piece would address not just how money moves, but how we receive it. If you're feeling a shift in your own relationship with wealth as you hear this, type "declaration made" in the comments. Let me share what happened next in my journey, when I discovered that commanding is only half of the abundance equation. As I began working with the command, "Money obeys me," something interesting happened. My logical mind immediately tried to doubt it, to rationalize. Why this couldn't possibly be true. This is completely natural. Our rational brain is designed to protect us from disappointment by questioning anything that contradicts our current reality. But here's the fascinating revelation. This command doesn't operate on logic. It operates on law. The universal law that says the outer world must bend to align with inner certainty. This insight was liberating. I didn't need to convince my logical mind of anything. I didn't need to build an intellectual case for why this command would work. I simply needed to embody the frequency of knowing, allowing the doubt to be present without giving it power. Because beneath the surface noise of our thoughts lies a deeper current of creation that responds not to what we think, but to what we are. When you truly understand this principle, you realize that manifestation has never been about the perfect technique or strategy. It's always been about embodying the vibration of what you desire until physical. Reality has no choice but to reflect it back to you. This is the hidden mechanism behind every seemingly miraculous transformation, the alignment of inner state with outer experience. What surprised me most about this journey was that the change wasn't loud or dramatic. There was no moment where the heavens opened and money rained down in obvious abundance. Instead, the transformation was rhythmic and cumulative, little alignments stacking quietly until they became impossible to dismiss. A client paying early here, an unexpected discount there, an opportunity arising precisely when needed. These weren't coincidences, they were confirmations. Each small instance was the universe saying, "Yes, I hear your command." The pattern became undeniable, and gradually, money began to feel less like something I chased and more like something that recognized me, almost like an old friend who knows your voice in a crowded room. This recognition factor is what separates true abundance from temporary financial gain. When money recognizes you at an energetic level, it stops being something you must constantly pursue. It becomes something that naturally circulates in your experience, flowing in and out with an ease that defies conventional financial wisdom. The process revealed something profound about the nature of our reality. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. This isn't just spiritual philosophy. It's practical metaphysics. Every aspect of your financial experience is currently mirroring your deepest beliefs and expectations with flawless precision. The moment you shift those beliefs at the core level, reality has no choice but to realign accordingly. For me, this revelation wasn't just a breakthrough in manifestation. It was a complete paradigm revolution. I began to see that my relationship with money wasn't something outside myself that needed fixing. It was an extension of my relationship with my own power. As I reclaimed that power through the simple but profound command, "Money obeys me," I was actually reclaiming a fundamental truth about creation itself. But even as these beautiful alignments began appearing in my experience, I sensed something was still incomplete in the equation. "Money obeys me," established the command, but there was another equally important element needed to complete the circuit. If this understanding of how reality responds to your inner certainty resonates with you, type "inner becomes outer" in the comments. Let me take you deeper into the discovery of what was missing. The second command that would transform my financial reality in ways I never imagined possible. As powerful as "money obeys me" had become in my experience, I began to notice something curious. While money was indeed responding to my command, sometimes it still seemed to slip through my fingers. The direction was established, but something in the reception felt incomplete. It was like sending a perfect signal into space, but having a faulty receiver. The message gets transmitted but can't fully land. This realization was the gateway to a profound insight. The first command is only half the key to financial transformation. Yes, money will obey your command when you speak with true authority, but if you haven't mastered the art of receiving, you'll create a bottleneck in the flow. The energy responds to your directive, but then encounters resistance at the point of delivery. Think about it. How many times have You commanded something into your experience only to sabotage its arrival through doubt, unworthiness, or simply not being energetically prepared to receive it. This pattern is particularly visible with money. We may command financial abundance with confidence, but then unconsciously block its full manifestation through subtle beliefs about our deservingness or capacity to handle wealth. The revelation that changed everything for me was understanding that commanding and receiving are two distinct energetic skills. Most of us have been taught, if we were taught anything about manifestation at all, to focus exclusively on the commanding aspect, the asking, the declaring, the visualizing. But very few of us have been trained in the subtle art of receiving, which is equally essential to the manifestation process. This missing piece explained so much about my previous frustrations with manifestation. All those times when I felt I was doing everything right, but still not seeing the results I desired, I was commanding without fully opening to receive. I was sending clear signals into the universe, but not creating the energetic space for their complete delivery. When both commands work in harmony, when you master not just the art of directive, but also the art of reception, something magical happens. Life stops being a random series of events you're reacting to and becomes a responsive field that moves in concert with your consciousness. One command sends the order into the quantum field. The other opens the door for its physical manifestation. This balance creates a complete circuit of creation. Without both elements working together, the manifestation process remains fragmented and inconsistent. You might see evidence of your commands working, but not the full embodiment of what you're calling in. The energy is moving, but it can't fully land in your experience. I began to observe this pattern, not just in my financial life, but in every area. Relationships, health, creative projects, all of them reflected this same principle. Wherever I was experiencing partial results, I could trace it back to an imbalance between commanding and receiving. I might be clear in my directive but blocked in my reception, or open to receive but unclear in my command. The integration of these two energies, the masculine principle of direction and the feminine principle of reception, creates a wholeness that transforms manifestation from effort to embodiment. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about remembering how creation itself works. If you've noticed this pattern in your own life, commanding without fully receiving, type "complete the circuit" in the comments. I'm about to reveal the second command that completely transformed my capacity to receive the abundance I was calling in. After I began working with the first command, something subtle yet profound started happening in my life. It wasn't the overnight miracle that manifestation videos often promise, no sudden windfalls or dramatic financial breakthroughs. Instead, life began moving with a different rhythm, as if the world had somehow adjusted its breathing to match mine. There was a synchronicity to events that couldn't be explained by coincidence alone. This rhythm manifested in the most ordinary yet extraordinary ways. Emails I'd been waiting on for weeks suddenly appeared in my inbox. People who had been difficult to reach became surprisingly available. Even traffic lights seemed to turn green just as I approached them. It was as if the external world was calibrating itself to my internal state, creating a dance of perfect timing. The most fascinating aspect of this transformation was that I wasn't doing more. I was actually doing less. Instead of the frantic energy of pushing and forcing that had characterized my previous relationship with manifestation, I was moving through life with a calm certainty that felt both effortless and powerful. Behind the scenes of this shift was a profound awakening to the true nature of creation. I realized that the universe doesn't respond to volume but to certainty. It's not about how loudly you declare your intentions or how frequently you repeat your affirmations. It's about the energetic signature beneath your words, the difference between saying, "I want," and saying, "I decide." This distinction might seem subtle, but it creates entirely different energetic fields. When you say, "I want," you're broadcasting the frequency of lack, of not having what you desire. You're positioning yourself at a distance from your manifestation, reinforcing the very separation you're trying to overcome. But when you say, "I decide," you're speaking from a place of sovereignty. You're not asking reality for permission. You're directing it from a place of inner authority. The revelation transformed not just how I spoke about money, but how I moved through every aspect of my life. I began to notice how certain people just carried themselves differently, not with arrogance, but with an unshakable knowing. They didn't hope for outcomes, they expected them. And strangely enough, reality seemed to bend around this expectation, creating pathways where previously there had been walls. This wasn't positive thinking or wishful manifestation. It was something far more fundamental, a recognition that consciousness itself is the primary force in creation, and that when consciousness speaks with clarity, the material world has no choice but to respond. I began experimenting with this principle in small ways at first. Instead of hoping for a good parking space, I would simply decide that one would be available. Rather than worrying about an important phone call, I would decide it would happen at the perfect time. These small tests consistently yielded results that defied probability, confirming what I was beginning to suspect, that reality itself is far more responsive to our consciousness than we've been led to believe. The journey wasn't about forcing my will onto the world. It was about aligning my vibration with what I was calling in, creating a resonance that naturally attracted the perfect circumstances. This alignment wasn't something I had to create through effort. It was something I had to remember through embodiment. If you've experienced moments where reality seemed to adjust itself to match your expectations, type "reality responds" in the comments. Now, let me share how I discovered the missing piece, the second command that would complete the circuit of manifestation and transform my financial reality forever. As I continued experimenting with the command, "Money obeys me," a profound insight emerged that completely shifted my perspective on manifestation. Life hadn't been ignoring my previous attempts at attracting abundance. It had been listening all along. The issue wasn't that the universe wasn't responsive. It was that I had been speaking the wrong language. I had been using the language of request when the universe only truly responds to the language of command. Think about this for a moment. When you make a request, you're positioning yourself as separate from what you're asking for, implicitly acknowledging that you don't have the authority to create it directly. But when you issue a command, you're speaking from a place of oneness with creation itself, recognizing that you and the creative force of the universe are not separate entities. This revelation was both humbling and empowering. I realized that all those years of struggle weren't because the universe was withholding abundance from me. It was because I had been communicating in a way that the field of creation simply doesn't recognize. It was like trying to speak French to someone who only understands Japanese. The intention might be clear, but the transmission fails. Through consistent practice with the first command, I began to understand its specific function in the manifestation process. Money obeys me awakens movement in the field. It establishes direction and intention. It tells money where to go and how to arrange itself in your experience. But something was still missing from this equation. I noticed that even after issuing this command with complete certainty, there would sometimes be a delay in its manifestation, as if the energy was moving but couldn't fully land in my experience. That's when I realized the crucial distinction between direction and reception. The first command establishes where energy should go, but the second command provides permission for it to arrive. This missing element, the permission to receive, is where most manifestation practices fall short. We're taught extensively about how to ask, how to visualize, how to affirm, but very little about how to create the energetic space that allows manifestation to complete itself. It's like carefully addressing and sending a package, but never opening your door when the delivery arrives. The journey to discovering this second command took me deeper into understanding the divine feminine aspect of creation. While commanding is an expression of the divine masculine, direct, focused, intentional, receiving is an expression of the divine feminine, open, allowing, embracing. Both are equally essential to the creation process. Yet, our manifestation teachings often emphasize only the masculine aspect. Behind the scenes of this revelation was a personal transformation in how I related to abundance itself. I began to notice subtle ways I had been blocking reception. Through unworthiness, through doubt, through the belief that abundance had to come through struggle. Each of these beliefs created an energetic interference that prevented the full embodiment of what I was calling in. The discovery of the second command came not through effort, but through surrender. A moment of complete letting go where I finally understood that receiving isn't something you do, it's something you allow. If you've sensed this missing piece in your own manifestation journey, the gap between commanding and receiving, type "ready to receive" in the comments. Let me share how the second command completed the circuit and transformed my entire relationship with abundance. The deeper I ventured into this practice, the more I began to recognize a fundamental truth about creation that transformed my entire worldview. Everything in life, money, time, relationships, opportunities, follows one simple rule. They mirror your state, not your effort. Reality responds to the frequency you're broadcasting, not the words you're speaking or the actions you're taking. This revelation was both liberating and confronting. If I woke up feeling rushed and scattered, the day would unfold with that same chaotic energy. Meetings running late, unexpected obstacles arising, time feeling compressed. But on days when I moved, with calm certainty, even without changing my schedule, everything seemed to flow with remarkable grace. It was almost eerie in its precision. Reality wasn't responding to what I was doing, but to the state from which I was doing it. Money, I discovered, follows this exact same principle. It doesn't respond to how hard you work, how many hours you put in, or even how brilliant your strategy is. It responds to the energetic signature you carry. When I moved from a state of lack and desperation into a state of calm authority, my financial situation began rearranging itself without additional effort on my part. The revelation wasn't in doing more. It was in being different. That's the hidden mechanism behind the power of "money obeys me." This command isn't just words. It's an energetic reorganization of the field around you. It reminds existence of its original hierarchy: awareness first, manifestation second. When you speak from this place of centered authority, you're not begging the universe for something external. You're reminding it of an order that already exists at the quantum level. Behind the scenes of this insight was a complete paradigm shift in how I understood the nature of reality itself. What if the physical world isn't solid and fixed, but responsive and fluid? What if it's constantly reorganizing itself around the most coherent consciousness in any given situation? When you stand in the frequency of "money obeys me," you become that coherent point around which financial energy naturally organizes. I began to notice this principle operating everywhere. People who panic about bills often find themselves in recurring financial emergencies. Those who approach money with calm confidence tend to experience synchronistic opportunities. Same external circumstances, completely different outcomes, all determined by the state from which each person is operating. This isn't magical thinking. It's energetic alignment. Money isn't just currency. It's conscious energy that responds to the tone of your being. When you speak to it from anxiety, it reflects that anxiety back to you. When you address it with authority, it responds with obedience. Not because you've manipulated it, but because you've remembered the natural order of creation. Consciousness leads, form follows. The command "money obeys me" is powerful precisely because it positions you correctly in this creative hierarchy. You're no longer supplicating to an external force. You're directing energy from your center. You're remembering that you're not separate from the creative process. You are the creative process itself, taking form in a human body. As this understanding deepened, I began to sense that there was something more to discover, a complementary energy that would complete the circuit. Because while money obeys me establishes direction with perfect clarity, there was another aspect of creation I hadn't fully embraced. If you're beginning to sense how profoundly your state influences your reality, type "state creates reality" in the comments. I'm about to reveal the missing piece that finally unlocked the full power of financial abundance in my life. As powerful as money obeys me had become in my experience, I began to sense something was incomplete in the equation. There were times when I would issue the command with perfect clarity, feel the energy begin to move, and then nothing, or at least not the full manifestation I was expecting. It was like watching a perfectly thrown ball suddenly vanish before reaching its target. That's when I discovered the missing piece that would transform everything. You can command all day long, but if the command doesn't reach a state of receiving, the current has nowhere to land. This revelation hit me like a lightning bolt of clarity. I had mastered the art of direction, but had overlooked the equally essential art of reception. Think about electricity for a moment. It requires both, a positive and negative charge to complete a circuit. Without both, the energy has nowhere to go. The same principle applies to manifestation. Your command creates the positive charge, the directional force that sets energy in motion. But without the receptive field, the negative charge, that energy remains suspended, unable to fully materialize in your experience. I began to observe this pattern everywhere in my life, not just with money. I would set clear intentions, take inspired action, and then subtly sabotage the results through an inability to fully receive. This wasn't happening at a conscious level. It was operating in the subconscious, in those hidden beliefs about worthiness and deservingness that we all carry. The hidden truth I discovered was both humbling and liberating. Most people, myself included, issue commands while simultaneously doubting they deserve the response. We declare what we want with our words while energetically rejecting it with our being. And in that contradiction, life pauses, not to punish us, but to wait for our acceptance. This is the great paradox of manifestation that few teachings address. The universe isn't withholding anything from you. It's simply waiting for you to become energetically coherent, for your conscious desires and subconscious beliefs to align. When you command from one frequency but receive from another, you create interference in the manifestation process. Behind the scenes of this revelation was a profound journey of self-worth. I had to confront all the subtle ways I was blocking reception, the belief that abundance must be earned through struggle, the fear that receiving too much would somehow make me less spiritual, the doubt that I could handle what I was calling in. The transformation wasn't about adding something new, but about removing these inner obstacles. It was about creating energetic space for what was already on its way, like clearing a blocked pipe rather than trying to force more water through it. As I began addressing these subconscious barriers to receiving, I noticed something remarkable happening. Manifestations that had seemed stuck began flowing again, as if they had been waiting all along for me to simply get out of my own way. This wasn't about positive thinking or affirmations. It was about energetic congruence, aligning my subconscious beliefs with my conscious commands so that life no longer encountered contradiction when responding to my directives. If you recognize these subtle blocks to receiving in your own experience, type "clearing the channel" in the comments. Let me reveal the second command that finally completed the circuit and allowed abundance to flow without resistance. The second command revealed itself during a moment of deep stillness. I'd been working intensely with "money obeys me" for weeks, seeing evidence of its power, yet still sensing something incomplete in the manifestation process. One morning, as I sat in quiet meditation, a profound realization washed over me. I had been focusing all my attention on commanding money, but almost none on creating the space to receive it. This insight illuminated a pattern I'd been repeating throughout my life. I was excellent at setting intentions, making plans, and taking action. But when it came to the actual moment of receiving, I would unconsciously tense up, as if bracing myself against the very thing I had been calling in. It was like ordering a beautiful meal and then being too nervous to taste it when it arrived. The revelation transformed my understanding of the entire manifestation process. I realized that receiving isn't passive. It's a powerful, active state that requires as much presence and intention as commanding does. It's not just about being open, it's about creating an inner environment that welcomes and integrates what you've called forth. When you truly understand this principle, you see that the universe is never withholding abundance from you. It's simply respecting your energetic boundaries. If your subconscious is broadcasting, "I don't deserve this," or "I'm not ready for this," or "this is too good to be true," the universe hears these signals more clearly than your conscious desires and responds accordingly. This explains why so many manifestations seem to get stuck in limbo, visible on the horizon but never fully materializing in your experience. It's not that your command wasn't heard, it's that your reception system isn't aligned to fully embody what you're calling in. It's like having the world's most powerful transmitter connected to a broken receiver. The awakening led me to discover the second command, which addresses this exact gap in the manifestation process. While money obeys me establishes your authority in the creative hierarchy, this second command aligns your entire being with the frequency of reception. It doesn't just open the door, it creates a clear pathway from intention to manifestation. What's fascinating about this second command is how it bypasses the intellectual mind and speaks directly to the subconscious, that deeper part of you that ultimately determines what you allow into your experience. When you embody this command, you're not trying to convince yourself that you deserve abundance. You're remembering that receiving is your natural state. This was the missing piece in my own journey. The recognition that abundance isn't something you achieve or earn. It's something you allow. The universe isn't testing your worthiness, it's responding to your readiness. And that readiness isn't measured by your actions, but by your energetic capacity to receive without resistance. As I began working with this second command, I noticed a profound shift in my relationship with money and abundance. The subtle anxiety that had always accompanied financial decisions began to dissolve. The need to control outcomes loosened its grip. Instead of chasing abundance, I found myself surrounded by it, not because my external circumstances had dramatically changed, but because my perception had transformed. If you've ever sensed that invisible barrier between you and what you're manifesting, type "breaking the barrier" in the comments. I'm about to reveal the exact words of this second command, the key that unlocks your full capacity to receive the abundance you're commanding. The second command revealed itself with striking simplicity. I always receive. The moment these words formed in my consciousness, I felt an immediate shift. Not an intellectual understanding, but a bodily knowing. It was as if some ancient tension I'd been carrying finally released. The air around me seemed to thicken, taking on that same quality of expectant silence I'd experienced when I first discovered money obeys me. But this time, the silence didn't feel like waiting. It felt like arrival. I always receive completes the circuit that money obeys me initiates. While the first command establishes direction and authority, this second command creates the sacred space for manifestation to land. Together, they form a complete pathway for abundance. One sends the signal, the other welcomes its return. What makes this command so transformative is how it bypasses your conscious mind and speaks directly to your energetic field. When you truly embody, I always receive, you're not trying to convince yourself that you deserve abundance. You're declaring that reception is your natural state. You're telling the universe, with quiet certainty, delivery accepted. This isn't just permission to receive, it's completion of the manifestation process itself. It's the sound of the universe exhaling after you've spoken. The cosmic recognition that the cycle of creation is not just about calling things forth, but about allowing them to arrive. In that moment of allowing, the field locks into response, creating a clear pathway between intention and manifestation. The revelation transformed my entire relationship with abundance. I began to notice how often I had been subtly rejecting what I was simultaneously asking for. sending mixed signals that created interference in the manifestation process. I always receive cleared that interference, creating a coherent field where my intentions could materialize without resistance. Behind the scenes of this revelation was a profound identity shift. I wasn't just changing my thoughts or behaviors. I was remembering a fundamental truth about my relationship with creation. Receiving isn't something I do, it's something I am. It's not an achievement, but a recognition. The acknowledgement that abundance is my birthright rather than something I need to qualify for. This wasn't about positive thinking or wishful manifestation. It was about energetic alignment, bringing my subconscious beliefs into harmony with my conscious desires so that life no longer encountered contradiction when responding to my commands. When you declare, "I always receive from this place of alignment," you're not hoping for evidence. You're establishing a vibrational baseline that reality can't help but mirror. The impact was immediate and tangible. Within days of working with this second command, money began flowing into my life through channels I hadn't even considered. Small refunds appearing unexpectedly, forgotten invoices suddenly paid, new opportunities materializing as if from nowhere. It wasn't about the amounts, initially, but about the pattern, the unmistakable evidence that something fundamental had shifted in my relationship with abundance. What fascinated me most was the effortlessness of it all. I wasn't pushing or striving or manipulating circumstances. I was simply holding the frequency of "I always receive" with quiet certainty, allowing the natural flow of abundance to arrange itself around that certainty. If you can sense the power of this second command, this declaration of receptivity, type "I always receive" in the comments. Now let me share what happens when you combine these two commands to create a complete circuit of manifestation. When I began working with these two commands together, something extraordinary happened. It wasn't just the addition of two powerful phrases. It was the creation of a complete energetic circuit. Money obeys me, and I always receive work in perfect harmony. Like two hemispheres of the same brain, two chambers of the same heart. One commands, the other allows. One directs, the other receives. One embodies the divine masculine energy of focused intention, the other embodies the divine feminine energy of open reception. This balance creates something far more powerful than either command could accomplish alone. It's like completing an electrical circuit. The energy doesn't just move, it flows continuously without resistance. When these two frequencies harmonize within you, money stops being something you chase and starts being something that circulates through your experience with natural grace. The practical impact of this integration was subtle yet profound. Life began moving with a quiet precision that felt almost orchestrated. Bills that once caused panic cleared themselves without drama. Projects that had been stalled for months suddenly found momentum, as if invisible barriers had been removed. Opportunities appeared that seemed tailored specifically to my skills and desires, not random chances, but perfect alignments that couldn't be explained by coincidence alone. What fascinated me most was how this transformation wasn't about dramatic external changes, but about a shift in relationship, both with money and with life itself. The anxiety that had once accompanied financial decisions dissolved into a calm knowing. The frantic energy of pushing and forcing gave way to an effortless flow that accomplished more with less effort. Behind the scenes of this evolution was a complete identity shift. I was no longer positioning myself as someone seeking financial improvement, but as someone remembering my natural state of abundance. The journey wasn't about becoming something new, but about returning to something ancient, a relationship with creation that had been temporarily forgotten but never truly lost. The revelation transformed not just my financial reality, but my entire experience of manifestation. I began to see that this same principle applies to everything we create: relationships, health, creative expression. When you balance command with reception, when you direct with clarity while remaining open to receive, you create a pathway for manifestation that bypasses struggle altogether. This isn't a technique or strategy, it's a remembrance. It's the recognition that you are both the commander and the receiver of your experience, both the speaker and the space in which the words echo. When you embody both aspects of this creative polarity, you're no longer working against yourself, creating in one moment what you unconsciously reject in the next. The integration of these two commands created a foundation of certainty that permeated every aspect of my life. I stopped worrying about how things would unfold and started trusting the natural orchestration of energy. I released the need to control specific outcomes and instead focused on maintaining the frequency that naturally attracts alignment. The breakthrough wasn't just financial, it was existential. I was remembering how creation actually works, not through effort and struggle, but through clear direction and open reception. This balance of energies isn't something we need to create. It's something we need to remember. If you sense how these two commands might work together to transform your own relationship with abundance, type "complete circuit" in the comments. Now let me share how this understanding began to manifest in tangible financial results. One of the most counterintuitive discoveries in this journey was how stillness accelerates manifestation. As I embraced both commands, money obeys me and I always receive, I noticed a fascinating pattern emerging. The more still I became internally, the faster external circumstances began to rearrange themselves. The less I pushed for results, the quicker everything seemed to align. This revelation challenged everything I thought I knew about creating change. We're conditioned to believe that manifestation requires constant action, vigilance, and effort, that we need to make things happen through sheer force of will. But what if this approach actually creates resistance in the very field we're trying to influence? What if our pushing is precisely what's slowing everything down? I began experimenting with this principle in my financial life. Instead of constantly checking my accounts, worrying about payments, or obsessing over when money would arrive, I would simply issue the commands with quiet certainty and then release them completely, trusting that the universe had heard me the first time. The results were nothing short of remarkable. Issues that had been stuck for months suddenly resolved themselves. Resources appeared exactly when needed, often through channels I hadn't even considered. It was as if the universe had finally understood my language. Not because I was speaking differently, but because I was broadcasting a clear, consistent signal without the static of doubt and interference. Like tuning a radio to the perfect frequency, the connection between intention and manifestation became crystal clear. This led me to a profound insight about why so many of our manifestations get delayed or derailed. We often interrupt our own blessings by issuing a command and then immediately ruining the transmission by checking if it worked. We plant the seed and then dig it up every day to see if it's growing. This constant monitoring creates an energetic interference that blocks the very thing we're trying to call in. That's where "I always receive" reveals its transformative power. This command doesn't just open you to abundance, it ends the interference pattern that's been disrupting your manifestations. When you truly embody "I always receive," you're declaring that reception is your natural state, not something you need to force or constantly verify. The declaration creates a field of trust that allows manifestation to unfold without your anxious monitoring. It's like telling the universe, "Message received. I trust the delivery is already in motion." This trust is what allows energy to flow unimpeded from intention to manifestation, from command to fulfillment. Behind the scenes of this understanding was a complete revolution in how I approached creation itself. I realized that manifestation isn't something you do. It's something you allow. The doing part, the commanding, takes only a moment. The allowing part, the receiving, is an ongoing state of being that creates the space for your commands to materialize. This perspective transformed my entire relationship with time and patience. I stopped seeing delays as evidence that something wasn't working and started recognizing them as part of the perfect orchestration of energy. I released the need to control how and when my manifestations would arrive, and instead focused on maintaining the frequency that naturally attracts alignment. If you've recognized how your own checking and monitoring might be interfering with what you're trying to create, type ending interference in the comments. Let me share how these two commands began working together to transform my financial reality in ways I never thought possible. As I continued working with these two commands, a deeper revelation emerged about the true nature of manifestation itself. I realized that commanding isn't about shouting your desires into the void and hoping the universe complies. It's about harmonizing with the creative forces that are already in motion, finding the frequency where your intention and universal energy vibrate as one. This understanding transformed how I approached the practice. Rather than seeing money obeys me as an assertion of dominance over some external force, I recognized it as a remembrance of my natural place in the creative hierarchy. And rather than viewing "I always receive" as a technique for getting more, I understood it as an alignment with the natural state of abundance that already exists. When you embody both tones, the authority of command and the openness of allowance, something remarkable happens. You begin moving through the world differently. Your entire energetic signature shifts. There's a quiet confidence that permeates everything you do, not from ego, but from alignment with something deeper and more fundamental. I noticed this shift not just in my financial decisions, but in all my interactions. Conversations flowed more naturally. Opportunities appeared at precisely the right moment. Even challenges seemed to resolve themselves with minimal effort on my part. It wasn't that life had suddenly become easier. It was that I had stopped creating resistance to its natural flow. The most profound transformation came when I realized I no longer needed external validation for my internal certainty. I stopped waiting for signs that my commands were working because I recognized that I was the sign. The state I was embodying was the evidence. Not something that would arrive later, but something that was already present in my being. This revelation completely inverted my relationship with wealth, opportunity, and timing. I understood that these weren't goals to be achieved, but reflections of my inner certainty. They weren't destinations I was moving toward, but manifestations of who I was being in each moment. The external was simply mirroring back to me my own energetic blueprint with flawless precision. Behind the scenes of this shift was a complete reframing of identity. I was no longer someone trying to become abundant. I was abundance itself, taking human form. I wasn't seeking financial freedom as some future state. I was embodying the frequency of freedom here and now, allowing physical reality to catch up with that energetic truth. When you truly integrate both commands, "when money obeys me" and "I always receive" become not just phrases you repeat, but states you embody, your relationship with manifestation fundamentally changes. You're no longer pushing against reality, trying to make things happen. You're flowing with the creative current, allowing things to unfold with perfect timing. This state of embodied certainty creates a field around you that money, opportunity, and synchronicity naturally respond to. Not because you're special or chosen, but because you've aligned yourself with the fundamental laws of creation. You've remembered what most people forget. That consciousness leads and form follows. That inner state determines outer experience. That what you are being is infinitely more powerful than what you are doing. If you sense this shift happening within you as you listen, this movement from seeking to embodying, type "embodied abundance" in the comments. I want to share how this integration of commanding and receiving began creating tangible financial results that transformed my bank account. The most remarkable discovery in this journey came when I realized that once this balance of commanding and receiving stabilizes within you, it never truly leaves. It becomes a permanent shift in your energetic signature, not something you do, but something you are. Even in moments of chaos or uncertainty, this frequency continues to whisper beneath your breath, beneath your heartbeat, guiding you back to center when you momentarily lose your way. I tested this principle during some genuinely challenging financial moments. There were still times when unexpected expenses arose or when projects didn't unfold as planned. But something fundamental had changed in how I responded to these situations. Instead of spiraling into panic or scarcity, I would feel that quiet certainty rising from somewhere deeper than my thoughts. That calm, knowing that everything was already resolved at the energetic level and was simply arranging itself in physical form. This inner stability creates a foundation that external circumstances can't easily shake. It's like having an energetic immune system that quickly returns you to balance whenever you start to drift into old patterns of worry or control. The commands become your native language, your default setting, your natural way of relating to abundance rather than something you need to remember to practice. Behind the scenes of this transformation is a profound identity shift. You're no longer someone trying to manifest better financial circumstances. You're someone who walks in the calm of completion, knowing that what you've commanded is already done. This knowing isn't intellectual, it's cellular, a deep embodiment that permeates every aspect of your being. The one who truly commands doesn't chase outcomes. They don't anxiously monitor results or constantly check for evidence that their manifestation is working. They simply issue the directive with quiet authority and then return to the present moment, allowing the world to rearrange itself silently, precisely, faithfully around that command. This surrender isn't passive, it's profoundly powerful. It's the recognition that your job in the manifestation process is the commanding and receiving. The middle part, where things take shape in physical reality, belongs to the intelligence of the universe itself. When you try to control that middle part through force or manipulation, you actually create interference in the very process you're trying to accelerate. The journey transformed not just my bank account, but my entire relationship with creation. I began to see how this same principle applies to everything we manifest: relationships, health, creative expression, spiritual awakening. When you balance command with reception, when you direct with clarity while remaining open to receive, you create a pathway that honors both your divine will and the natural unfolding of life. What fascinated me most was how this state of balanced authority created a field effect around me. People began responding differently to my presence. Opportunities seemed to find me rather than requiring my constant pursuit. Timing became almost supernatural in its precision. Not because I was controlling these elements, but because I had stopped interfering with their natural orchestration. The wisdom in this approach is both ancient and revolutionary. It's the remembrance that creation isn't something that happens to you or even through you. It happens as you. You are not separate from the creative process, but an embodiment of it. When you align your conscious commands with your subconscious receiving, you're not manipulating reality, you're harmonizing with it. If you feel this resonance growing stronger within you, this sense of walking in the calm of completion, type inner harmony in the comments. I want to share how this stable foundation began creating tangible financial results that transformed my relationship with money forever. As our journey comes to a close, I want to thank you for staying with me through this revelation. It's not often we find ourselves in those rare moments of clarity where everything shifts, where we stop struggling against the current and remember how to flow with it instead. These two commands, money obeys me and I always receive, aren't just phrases to repeat. They're frequencies to embody, states to inhabit. They've transformed my relationship with abundance from one of chasing to one of commanding and receiving. And from the energy I feel through this screen, I sense they've resonated with something deep within you too. If you found value in this perspective, in this remembrance of your natural authority with money, consider subscribing to join our community. Each week, I share insights like these, not surface-level tactics, but fundamental shifts in how we relate to abundance, success, and fulfillment. I'd love to know if this message found its way to you at exactly the right moment. If you felt that divine timing, type divine timing activated in the comments below. Your stories and experiences strengthen our collective field, reminding us that we're all walking similar paths of remembrance. If this resonated with you, a simple like helps this message find others who might be standing at that same crossroads I once found myself at. staring at an unchanged bank balance, wondering what piece they're missing. There's another dimension to this practice I couldn't fully explore today. If you're ready to go deeper into how these commands transform not just your finances, but your entire relationship with manifestation, I've created a video right here that continues this journey. Click and join me there to discover how these same principles apply to every area of your life. Remember, you don't manifest money, you remember your authority over it, and that remembrance is already happening within you right now.